Welcome! Today we're diving into the history of Albania, a nation forged in the crucible of empires, with a story that's all about an unyielding will to exist.
And that's really the question at the very heart of Albania's story, isn't it? It's this incredible tale of a people who have just persistently fought to hang on to their unique identity, from ancient times all the way to today.
All right, so to really unpack this epic saga, we're going to break it down into 6 parts. We'll start with Albania's ancient roots and take it all the way to its modern-day aspirations.
Okay, let's kick things off way back in classical antiquity. We're talking about a formidable group of tribes known as the Illyrians, who are, widely considered the ancestors of today's Albanians.
So, long before Rome was even a big deal, these tribes weren't just living here. No, they were a dominant force in the Balkans. They were building powerful kingdoms and really shaping the politics of the whole region.
And this timeline, it shows a really clear pattern, This wasn't just a bunch of scattered tribes, not at all. We're talking about a whole succession of powerful, organized kingdoms. You've got King Bardilas uniting his people to go toe-to-toe with Philip of Macedon. Then there's King Agron, who built his kingdom into a naval power that basically owned the Adriatic Sea. Their independence, it really only ended when they ran up against the rising, unstoppable force that was the Roman Republic.
This just brilliantly illustrates the kind of leaders the Illyrians had. So, after King Agron dies, his wife, Queen Tuda, takes charge. Now, the Greek historian Polybius was kind of dismissive, right? Women's reasoning, he said. But get this, she commanded fleets, she expanded the kingdom, and she boldly defied Roman ambassadors. That's what kicked off the First Illyrian War. Talk about a powerful leader.
All right, let's move on, because that fierce spirit of independence, it was about to be tested again and again over centuries of foreign rule.
For over 1,000 years, Albania's location made it the super coveted prize. It was this piece of land just passed between one shifting empire and the next. The Byzantines, the Bulgarians, the Serbs.
But the next chapter, wow, this one was the longest and honestly the most transformative. The arrival of the Ottoman Empire would completely reshape Albanian society. It brought Islam, a whole new political order, and it all lasted for nearly 500 years.
But here's the thing, even against the huge power of the Ottoman Sultan, that Albanian spirit of resistance, it didn't just survive, it soared. And for 25 legendary years, it was all embodied by one single man.
This right here, this is the defining story of Albanian national identity. His name was Skanderbeg. He was a former Ottoman commander who came back to his homeland and did something nobody thought was possible. He united all the feuding Albanian nobles under one banner. This League of Liege, it wasn't just a military pact. You can think of it as a kind of proto-state, the first real taste of a unified Albania. And for a quarter of a century, his small army did the impossible. They just kept defeating much, much larger Ottoman armies, creating this powerful, enduring symbol of what Albanians could do when they stood together.
So Skanderbeg's rebellion really planted a seed, this idea of a unified state. And that idea would blossom centuries later into a modern national awakening, which led, to the very turbulent birth of the Albanian nation.
So, fast forward. After centuries of Ottoman rule, the empire is finally collapsing during the Balkan Wars. Albanian leaders see their chance, and they seize it. But, getting independence is one thing, actually securing it is a whole different ballgame, and the country was immediately plunged into chaos.
And this timeline, man, it really puts that turmoil into perspective. The new nation's search for stability was just frantic. In just its first 25 years, Albania went from being a principality run by a German prince to a fragile republic, then a kingdom under the pretty charismatic and controversial King Zog. And then, finally, it was just swallowed up by Mussolini's Italy right before World War II.
So coming out of all that turmoil, Albania then embarks on one of the most extreme and isolating political experiments you can imagine. We're talking about a country that literally sealed itself off from the rest of the world.
For the next 4 decades, Albania was ruled with an iron fist by a man named Enver Hoxha, and his unique brand of communism, called Hoxhaism, was basically extreme hardline Stalinism. Anti-revisionist just meant he totally rejected the Soviet Union for moving away from Stalin's policies. This paranoia led to autarky, complete self-reliance, and it all culminated in creating the world's first officially atheist state. Yep, all religion was banned. His fear of invasion got so intense that he had over 170,000 concrete bunkers built, which you can still see all over the country today. And this path to isolation, it was systematic. Albania didn't just join the Eastern Bloc, it methodically cut ties with its own allies. First, it broke with Yugoslavia. Then, when the Soviets got less Stalinist, Hoxha cut them off and sided with China. And finally, when China started warming up to the US, he cut them off too. So by the late 70s, Albania was just utterly, completely alone.
Well, after Hoxha died in 85, and with the winds of change sweeping across Eastern Europe, that isolated fortress began to crumble. And what followed was a really difficult and painful transition.
So the fall of communism brought freedom, absolutely. But it also brought incredible economic hardship and a lot of social unrest. Think about it. For a country that had been cut off for almost half a century, suddenly rejoining the world was just a traumatic and chaotic experience.
And that difficult transition really hit rock bottom in 1997. There was a widespread collapse of these massive pyramid schemes where, a huge chunk of the population had invested their entire life savings. When they failed, the nation was plunged into anarchy. The government collapsed, military armories were looted, the country was literally on the brink of civil war, until an international force had to come in and restore order.
But out of the ashes of that crisis, a new Albania began to emerge, one that was determined to stabilize and, firmly chart a new course for its future.
And really, the 21st century has been a story of remarkable recovery and integration for Albania. It joined NATO, which was a huge signal of its Western orientation. And its path toward joining the European Union has been steady, even if it's been challenging. This whole process has required some really deep, difficult reforms, especially when it comes to the rule of law and fighting corruption. Those are still ongoing struggles, for sure. But the progress they've made in modernizing their economy and democratic institutions is just undeniable.
Which brings us to a final, pretty interesting question. For a nation whose entire identity has been forged through centuries of resisting outside powers, what does it mean to now fully embrace being part of a larger European family? It's just a fascinating new chapter in this long, proud story of resilience.
So I really hope you enjoyed that journey through Albania's epic history. If you did, and you want to explore more like it, be sure to check out our Quick Country Histories playlist. And of course, subscribe to the channel Notebook Summaries for more deep dives. Thanks so much for watching.